Take one. Hello, I am Brian Thomas. This is Ideo University's class on design engineering. So I have with me my interviewee. This is Michelle Stout, and we are working on the problem of how to help families eat healthier. So today's interview is made on, today is the 20th, I believe?
21st.
21st, right? So as I said, it was March 21st, 2021. Michelle, do I have your permission to record this?
Yes.
All right, I have the permission of the grantor. I will not be paying Michelle, so this interview is not being coerced. She is doing it with free will, I'm assuming, as well?
Yes.
All right, the interviewee is of their own free will. So in that case, Michelle, welcome, and thank you for taking my time out of your day. Much appreciated. Talking about food a little bit, what do you think of when you think of healthy eating habits? What does it mean to you?
To eat a well-balanced diet, try to get in good amounts of protein, vegetables.
Okay. No, I mean, and is that something that is it important to you? Like, do you find, is it something you give a lot of thought to, or is it something that you sort of, it's in your back of your mind, or like, does it come up often?
Depends on the day.
Okay, truthfully. So you're right, some days, how busy you are, et cetera.
Yeah.
All right, that seems perfectly fair. I had a question. So thinking about your kitchen, based on the way you set it up and the way you did it and the artifacts in there, what do you like to cook?
I like to cook.
Yeah, what do you like to cook? If you got health, it doesn't even matter. Just what do you like to cook in general?
I don't know.
You need to phone a friend.
I tend to make a lot of tacos.
Okay. And what is about tacos you like?
It's easy,
Okay.
quick, easy meal.
And it tastes good?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a healthy meal for you?
Depends on what you put on it.
Right, so it could go either way.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about a taco, perhaps, is that it's an easy meal, but yet it can be healthy. It can be at least healthy as you want it to be. Okay, that makes sense. So then, stepping out of that, that's what if you think about it, how do you plan for meals? Like, what do you do? Do you do any meal planning? Tell me do you do it at all? So start there.
I think about doing meal planning. I don't usually get around to doing meal planning because I just don't take the time, but a lot of times I'll plan meals by just either what I have on hand, what I happen to find in the store that day. Sometimes I'll find a recipe online or something and decide to try it, but
How do you feel about meal planning in general? Like, how does it
I would love to be able to meal plan if I had the time to actually do it.
So you like the idea of it. So it's not something that you dread necessarily. It's just that it's a time-consuming process.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah.
Okay. So you like you like the idea of meal planning, just not the time involved. So if you had all the time in the world, it would be an enjoyable activity, or just an activity you would do just out of habit? Like, how do you feel about the meal planning process in general, assuming time were not a factor anymore?
I don't know if I would say it would be enjoyable,
Okay.
but it would make my life easier throughout the week.
So if you are going to plan a meal and you're going to try to make it, when you plan a meal, do you want to make it a healthy meal, or do you look, what are the kind of things that you look for when you try to plan a meal?
Usually I try to make it fairly healthy.
Okay, so that's something you try. So let's say you plan a meal and then you cook it. Is it generally what you cook, what you started with as a plan, or do you think it sort of varies along the way? Like, you start out saying, oh, I'm going to make this, but I end up making this instead. So how do your actual meals compare to your planned meals?
I mean, usually whatever I'm making, I pretty much make because I don't usually have like a recipe or something, so I'm kind of sticking with it.
So if you started planning at the beginning of the week, for instance, like on a Sunday for your whole week, and then it's now Thursday, and you're like, hey, Thursday I'm on the schedule, I'm going to make meal X. How often do you think you really stick to that? If you were going to do it at all.
Probably 75% of the time.
And why do you think there's a variance between what you could have planned?
Because I probably would just be like, I don't feel like eating that today.
Okay, so is it just a question then of your personal preference that day, or does health ever come into it? Like, do you think to yourself, okay, I want a meal to be particularly healthy and I'm going to make that healthy meal, or I'm not going to make that healthy meal? Does that ever come up, or is it mostly just, that's the taste I'm feeling today? Like, does health ever come into, those kind of health choices come into the idea of meal planning? Actual versus variance.
Sometimes depending on how I'm feeling that week. Like if I'm, feeling like, oh God, I just need to eat healthy this week, then I might plan more and tend to change to more healthy stuff.
All right. Do you think eating healthy is hard to do?
Yeah, just because it usually takes time to prep, and you have to, a lot of the healthy items, vegetables, all of that, they go bad quick. You have to, you can't just pull them out of the cupboard. They have to be in the refrigerator, and they go bad.
So when you think about how easy or hard it is to do a meal, and it sounds like it's not hard, but nonetheless it requires more planning, more preparation, more. So in your own kitchen, do you keep a lot of fresh foods, or do you keep, how do you balance that, since it's more difficult to make?
I try to keep vegetables, but they just don't do well in my little fridge. So, and they don't seem to, in this little apartment fridge, they don't seem to stay fresh as long.
Sure.
So.
Okay. How does healthy food taste to you? Like, when you think of healthy food, do you think of good tasting food, or do you think it has somehow lacking?
I think most healthy food can taste good.
And what do you think are the qualities of a tasting good, healthy food? Not necessarily any particular food, but in general, what makes healthy food taste better or taste good as opposed to a healthy food that tastes not so good?
How you season it, and
Okay.
just, I don't know.
Is it mostly how it's prepared?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say there's any particular thing, like when you're thinking about a healthy meal, if you're going to prepare it for yourself or for friends, how do you prepare things in general to make them taste good as opposed to make them taste not as good?
Just trying to make sure I use seasoning on them.
Okay. There's no wrong. There's certainly no wrong answer here. So do you think healthy food is faster or slower to prepare than would be unhealthy food?
Depends on what it is, but most of the time it's really actually, sometimes it might be even quicker.
Okay.
So, it doesn't take that long to like roast vegetables versus having to make like a, huge meal.
So then, based on that, do you think is it easier or harder to prepare healthy meals versus unhealthy ones?
Not the same.
Okay, so it's about the same. And then, do you think it's cheaper or more expensive to produce healthy meals?
I think it's probably, I personally think it's more expensive because, especially depending on the time of year, because certain times of year it's harder to find vegetables and things like that are fresh and good prices. And
Okay. Are there specific times, days, moments when it's harder to eat healthier than it is other times? Like does it ever get hard to eat healthy?
yeah, sometimes it's hard when I come home from work and I just want to eat something quick and easy and don't want to have to, so I just, whatever happens to be around versus thinking about what's healthy.
Okay. So even on times then when you're tired and you just got home from work and you have a choice between a healthy or unhealthy meal, what makes you choose one way or the other?
Just kind of how I feel that day. I don't know. Sometimes it's like if I had a rough night, I just tend to go through the thing that's going to taste better and not be,
So
which sometimes is the unhealthy thing.
Which kind of leads me to a follow-up question. Is sometimes would you feel healthy food is not a reward compared to unhealthy? Like, is unhealthy food a reward over healthy food? When you're tired?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a reward or necessarily, but it's more of a, it makes you feel, it's a more of a feel-good. In other words, how does healthy food make you feel when you're tired versus unhealthy food?
I mean, usually the unhealthy food kind of fills you up more, so you kind of feel more satisfied.
Okay. And then how does healthy food make you feel when you're tired?
Healthier?
I love that. We'll go ahead and take that part out. Okay. And why do you think that people eat less healthy foods in general? And just not you, but just in general. I mean, obviously in America we eat a lot of unhealthy food.
Easier to run through like fast food, or like I said, make those quick, easy box mac and cheese, things like that, than take the time to.
So you've probably seen like in the grocery store those like meals that are like you can see the vegetables all prepared. I mean, they have literally a whole box kit you can just sort of throw together. Even though that might be the same equivalent amount of work as let's say a frozen lasagna, why do you think more people would choose the frozen lasagna over the mixed vegetable, lean protein meal, even if they're an equivalent amount of work? What do you think makes what do you think is what pushes people one way or the other?
I don't know, just their feelings of how, sometimes maybe that, like lasagna will seem like it's more food or it's gonna feed more than that, vegetable dish or something.
Okay.
It's like just a perception of how it is.
So do you think that in fact, that brings up a great point, by the way. Do you think that the quantity of food has an effect on what people perceive then as the quality of the meal? So in other words, if something is relatively unhealthy, but there's a lot of it, that seems, even if it's the same caloric equivalent, does it seem like unhealthy food simply feeds more people per dollar or per pound or per quantity?
Yeah, probably.
I think that's kind of a perception.
Yeah.
And that generally, and again, given the two side by side, will the unhealthy often taste better than the healthy?
Or it probably usually tastes better, but it's a different type of better.
That's fine. So if you were going through a drive-through restaurant, this mythical restaurant, and it had two boards, one was like, lasagna and cheeseburgers and pastrami sandwiches, and this side of the board had grilled salads and all these very healthy options, and they were the same pricing, and they could be prepared equally as quickly through the drive-through, what would make you choose one over the other?
I think it would just be how I feel that day.
Okay.
If I'm feeling kind of run down and just blah, then I may go, I should really eat that healthy meal so I feel better, But then if I'm just like, I may just, I want a cheeseburger today.
Okay. Now in that same scenario, what if you were driving down the street and you're heading home from work, and you're tired, and there are two fast food places side by side, and one is the cheeseburger pastrami lasagna, and the other one is the pita pocket salad, grilled chicken? What would make you choose one or the other? So at that point, since you no longer you have to actually physically choose one of the two restaurants, what would make you choose one or the other?
I don't know. Just like, again, kind of how I felt.
Okay. Would it make any difference, the fact that they were in two different physical locations, and that you had to make some plan ahead of time versus they were in the same place and you could make it on the fly? Okay, so that would not make a difference. Yeah, however you felt.
If I already had thought about like, I'm going to eat healthy today, then it would be easy to just go to the healthy place.
Well, you have kind of like a rat problem here. I'm going to have to go and splatter real quick. Kidding, by the way. There's a person crawling behind the camera. Last question for you. How do you find ways to eat healthy?
just trying to keep some like vegetables. I tend to try to find lots, try to look at lots of healthier recipes, trying to kind of keep myself in that mode of finding things to make, so it kind of puts me in that mindset of eating healthy. And like I said, just trying to think about what I'm eating as best I can.
Is it an important thing to eat healthy too?
It is. Just takes work.
And so is that the balance then? The balance is you want to eat healthy, but it's work.
It takes you have to put time into it.
And so then my follow-up question to that is, if in fact, like if you could deliver any meal, so there's, even when you're faced with the choice of healthy versus unhealthy foods, and it's no extra work per se and no extra money, then it comes down to what?
Pretty much what you feel like eating that day.
Okay.
That's what you feel like doing.
So if you could recommend anything then to the idea that you're trying to encourage people or families to eat healthier, what would be your advice then to a family trying to eat healthier, based on your own experience?
Just trying to limit the unhealthy options that you have in your house. If you have to go out and get it, then it's obviously not going to be as easy. So the more healthy items you have in your house, it's easier to have yourself make a healthy item.
So you open the fridge and there's nothing but vegetables in
Yeah.
there. Your choices are limited. And is there any reason, so if that's your advice to other families, why do you think that more families don't do that? That they said, I know I should have a fridge full of vegetables, but in fact I've got my lasagnas and my chuck roast in there. Why do you think, in other words, do you think people make those choices?
Yeah, they somewhat make those choices, and then usually the family members aren't as happy with those choices. So, they want the stuff that's in there, and so.
So you think people like the idea of healthy better than the actual taste of healthy?
Probably.
Okay. So is there any other advice you can give me?
Just
truly no wrong
trying
answer.
to just trying to keep your mindset on what's healthy, and I don't know.
All right, fair enough. Thank you very much for your interview time. Much appreciated, my class students. Thank you, everybody.